There's always been a lot of debate on who invented the chainsaw, but let's go over the facts and you can decide for yourself. I'm sure most people have heard about the one from 1780 that was developed for childbirth. And then of course you had the steam powered big lug around ones from like 1859, 1860 was the original patent. But we're going to talk more about the actual chainsaws designed for timber production that were coming on in the later years and using a chain. The steam-powered ones were all reciprocal and using the reciprocating motion. In 1897, an Oregon inventor patented a chain-driven style frame thing. In 1905, Eureka, California, they had this thing that was a gas engine that had the chain around the tree. You nailed the gas, it was a water-cooled engine, the water tank onto the tree, and it cut around it. You had to pull the tanks off of it real quick as the tree fell down. They said this thing would cut through a tree 10 foot in diameter in 4.5 minutes, which for 1905 was rolling. Then along came R.C. Muir, had the saw that was featured in the Scientific American, claimed it would cut through a tree 5 to 7 feet in 10 minutes. And in 1919, you had the first genuine chainsaw. It was called the Sector. It had a two-cycle outboard engine. It was connected with this flexible shaft on it. And also around that time in Canada, there was this dude out stretching barbed wire, pulling it with his horses. And the barbed wire went around this post, cut through a 7-inch post. He's like, daggone, he was a trained millwright. Takes the barbed wire, rigs it up to his son's bike chain, and he built a couple saws out of it and was going to try to take them and get some patents. Went out to British Columbia out west, and he ran into the same thing that the Sector did. And the trees were too big. The saws couldn't, they were 24-inch, and the trees out there, big trees out west. But there was this real smart dude named Charles Wolfe, right? And he'd worked on like submarine prototypes with the Navy when he was younger. And he hooked up with this dude named Frank Redmond, which was an electrical engineer. And they decided they were gonna make some electric chainsaws. And they're the ones that came up with the chain design that carried really into the 50s. And by 1920, they were rolling. They had an operation. They were putting out 3 different models. They all had a 1.5 horsepower electric engine. And in 1927, they came out, the Wolfe Company came out with the pneumatic chainsaw. The pneumatics were really popular for Wolfe because they could be operated underwater. And by 1931, Wolfe came out with a 4-stroke, 4 horsepower saw. It's like 1931 because they had heard about steel and Dolmar firing up in the late 20s. And so they knew they had to get into the gas cane. So Andrea Steele and Emil Lurk both worked for the Urco Rinco Company in 1925. Then they decided to go their separate ways. Steele put out an electric chainsaw in 1926. But see, Andrea Steele knew he was going to have to put out something that was gas powered. He had invented a gas powered washing machine in 1923. So his first saw in 1927 had to be taken apart at the tree. It was huge, but that's when he made his first one, 1927. And Dolmar put out that monster 15 cubic inch, just beast of a saw there. By 1930, Steele was putting out a something he called a midget, and it was like 127 pounds, 7.5 horsepower, still 2-man operated. It wasn't until 1944 that IEL put out something called the Beaver that could be operated by one person. There were a couple models they put out, and they were definitely not light. The Model C is said to weigh 117 pounds, and the Model F was lighter at 85. That company also was the ones who switched around, put the ring handle on top and the pistol grip on the back that everybody else adopted. By 1948, IEL was putting out a Pioneer that weighed 28 pounds. That was just the power head, 50cc saw. Also in 1948, the Dissington Company, or however you say that, put out a little 3.5 horsepower, and it was a pretty manageable size. But the Titan Company is accredited with the Sportsman as far as actually putting out the first saw that was available for residential or just consumer use, and not to be used but a couple times a year. Just sit in the garage and grab it when you need it.